Well, to kick things off, I'm probably gonna start up with Moist Critical's video here, just because I've been wanting to see that. So I heard about his speedrunning challenge. I know that he got like a really small game and got everyone to speedrun it to the point where even Simply, who does Mario 64 speedruns, even attempted this. So it was kind of cool, kind of interesting, fun to watch. And we'll just see how it all goes, because it was very interesting, that's for sure. And okay, yeah, we got audio. I will need to keep an eye. Oh, I actually need to close out of save tech real quick.
I'm sure you've seen by now, I put a $10,000 speedrun bounty on a game no one has ever played besides me, and it was an amazing experience.
That's
I
as
want
much
to
as
go
I
over
know
the
as well.
history of this speedrun competition. It lasted 2 weeks, and I'm pretty sure the stories will last a lifetime. Amok Runner, a name that'll go down in history as one of the finest creations of the modern age.
Hold up.
Should humans
Minecraft's
ever
not
go
behaving.
extinct,
I have to bring out
hope
its
the
parent
only
task
thing we
manager.
leave behind is a copy of this game. This is the speedrun world record history of the best speedrunning game ever discovered.
Linda, listen. I got the morphine that you asked for. I know that you're dying, but... Oh god, what the what is happening?
The glitches in this game are the most cursed shit out of any game I've ever fucking played.
So I know nothing about this game either, so I hope the audio is all good.
I found this game on a stream randomly while perusing the new releases on Steam. Most of them are stinkers, but this time we got lucky. I found a diamond in the rough. I was the first to complete this game probably in the world. I
But how much
probably
does
am the
this game
first one ever
cost?
to finish it, including the developer. I probably beat it before he did.
Amok Runner,
And this
is it?
fucking thing I knew was special from the get-go. It's hard to fit a
$22
game of this magnitude into a single genre.
That's not fair.
I liken it to something like Death Stranding, how it's a Stranding type game. This is an Amok type game. I'll address the elephant in the room. I know it's not actually pronounced Amok, it's more like Amok or Amok. But I just think it sounds so much cooler that way. Now it's based on a book of the same name, and I don't know how
Yeah, I can
closely
get
it
that,
follows
actually.
that story, but I'll break it down for you. You're a doctor in a town that hasn't been visited by a woman in a long time, which led to the iconic line from the game. Her name is Linda, and she's coming to you,
Okay.
the doctor, because she's looking to have a discreet abortion performed. However,
Oof.
you conduct yourself unprofessionally, and it scares her away. You become obsessed, you chase her around. Eventually, she gets an abortion from a shady place and dies as a result. No!
I love his reactions. They're actually
You
so
are
good.
overcome with guilt for this whole situation,
I know, I'm
and
getting
you end
this
up
game, I
pushing her
think.
coffin into the sea to hide her secret, and then kill yourself as well. It's
What?
a tragic story, and the name comes from the syndrome or disease that's inflicted the town that's turning them into like mindless killers. It's the Amok syndrome, so doesn't really play much of a role in the story, but you know it's there. Now that you know what the game's about,
Okay.
let me show you my ass. I thought this would
Oh.
be a fun challenge because no one's played this game, and I had a feeling it would actually turn out to have some really cool glitches and tech that would lead to really interesting speedruns, and I was kind of right. So I put a $10,000 bounty on it. Whoever could finish the game
Hang on,
fastest in
is
a
it two?
2-week time period would take home the grand prize. I divided it amongst the top 3 because that's what the runners decided would be best, and I wanted at the end of the day for this to be something fun and celebrated by the speedrun community. So instead of just giving a $10,000 lump sum to first place,
You know what?
I did 6,000
I'm done
to
with this
first,
stupid skin.
2.5k to second, and 1.5k to third. And the competition was fierce. It all started with a glitch that I found myself, a glitch that the community dubbed Moist Skip. After I beat the game, I had a suspicion that I could
Let's
actually
go,
just skip to the end of
dude.
the game right from the game's intro, because the final scene takes place where the game begins. I really feel like if I can just get on that ship at the beginning of the game, I'll get right to the end. Let's see if the coffin's there. It is. I bet if I can find a way to
I like
get
his
over to that
thinking.
coffin, it'll activate. So now we just need to find a way over there. So there's a coffin that's just out of reach from the starting ship. So if I could just slam together all the brain cells in my little noodle and find a way to get to that
Okay,
coffin,
I'm installing
I assume
Amok
that would
Runner
trigger the
now.
final
We might
cutscene.
do it later.
So I
See what
immediately
happens.
found a way of getting there by clipping onto this staircase using this little life raft. On the rail, stay on the rail.
No way.
He really wants to fall. And the prompt is there.
It's
so I
that
pushed it,
simple?
but the game didn't end. It didn't actually trigger the final cutscene.
Oh.
And the reason for that is because it turns out this game actually uses a very strict checkpoint / flagging system. So sequence breaks ended up being impossible. No! The cutscene doesn't play. Why? Push it! No! Because the game won't load the next shit unless you do the previous shit. So if you don't complete the current objective, you can't complete any other objectives. It's cutthroat. I didn't know that at the time, but this discovery still did have some
So what
use,
if
but it was
you
very risky because the angle you
Are
had to
able
take was
to start the
super
game without an
specific.
objective.
And it could only be used at the very end of the game and saves approximately 4 seconds. This was the genesis of Amok Runner speedrunning.
Okay, so
Day 1 of the competition was fucking chaotic. It was an absolute mess. It was like a Jackson Pollock painting of world records. Just world records all over the place. Most people spent the first day just figuring out what the game even was, playing it normally for the first time, figuring out how the game works.
Oh my
Just
god,
kind of
dude.
going over, like, the
It's so
most
out there.
bare essentials of Amok Runner. The first records were in the hour ballpark. Shortly after those were clocked in, there were some coming in at 50 minutes, then 40 minutes, and then we started getting in the wacky zone in the 30-minute ballpark. The fastest time clocked in was by a streamer named Dizzy, who got a 32:21 and absolutely steamed some ham. Dizzy is probably a name you're familiar with. He's an extremely talented gamer, especially when it comes to shooters, and he put his expertise to the test in a game like no other. Now, his run didn't utilize any crazy glitches or tech. It was mainly just optimizing the route that he was taking to get from checkpoint to checkpoint, but there were a couple of very important discoveries made on day 1. One of them is a trick that was used all the way up until the final day. It's called Linda Skip. In the beginning of the game, once you're in the clinic, Linda pays you a visit, and man, she's a real chatty Cathy, I'll tell you what. She has this like minute 30-second long fucking monologue that you can't skip through. However, if you wait until she gets into your office and then make a mad dash to the door at the right time, you can actually squeeze out of the door before it locks, trapping you in there with her in order to continue the dialogue.
That's
this
funny.
saves you a handful of seconds, and it's actually an extremely important skip to hit. The way that most runners line it up is they look at Linda's feet in order to get the timing correct, and then they just blast through the door. And if you miss this, you instantly have to reset. You don't stand a chance of even having a good run. It's dead in the water immediately. Then you have to go through the unskippable intro again, which is just pure pain. Linda Skip is extremely important, and it was discovered on day 1. Another important discovery for day 1 was Dane Skip. You get chased around by this absolute fucking maniac, this Amok zombie who's hitting you with an axe, and runners discovered that if you go into the cabin and go out at the perfect time, you get to clip through the cabin door and you skip the encounter and saves you a handful of seconds. And after putting these new discoveries to the test, we had a bunch of other world records come in. Spicy TV gets a 31:10. Shortly after that,
let's
he then
go,
gets a
dude. Can we get sub 30?
Then we have
This is a
new
sub 30
Titan
game.
come in. His name is Zach777, who comes in with a meaty 30:35.
Woo! This game truly looks like something else, though. It really does. Also, I love the summoning salt type of style Moist is going for here. It's great. The editing's great. Superb.
Another new runner named Deet D gets a 30-32.
True.
Ezio gets a 30-26. And this
Sub
was an
30?
interesting one because this was the first use of a music mute, which was discovered to actually save time through Linda's death. So if you mute the in-game music, you actually save time because it makes Linda's death a little bit quicker.
What?
30-26, Dizzy comes back to reclaim
Okay.
the glory with the first sub 30, which was a 29-50. But Spicy TV, not to be outdone, comes around the corner with a furious 29-45.
Woo!
Then Zach comes out of the shadows once more with a 29-43.
Sub 25? Can we get a sub 25?
Again right after that with a 29-41. And then finally, finishing day one, the fastest time at the end of the 24 hours since the competition was posted was held by Spicy TV with a 29-17. A fucking crazy day one, honestly. Very turbulent. The next 3 days.
I haven't seen the full run, so I don't know if we can cut it by that much, but sub 25 would be sick.
Driving, as well as the most effective lines for walking to get you to the destinations quickest. However, there were 3 key discoveries. One of them was a different route taken from the train station to your house that allows you to completely skip the entire Dane encounter. So he just gets banished to the fucking Shadow Realm. You don't even have to see him if you just walk in a different direction, and it saves a handful of seconds. So that became used by every run from this point forward. Another one is Graveyard Skip, which is towards the very end of the run.
Wait! Do you think it's possible for
there is a
sub
cutscene
25
that plays right before you get to the final boss fight. However, you can skip that cutscene by just simply walking out of bounds and just kind of like
Wait,
grinding
what?
on the
You can just
barrier
walk
outside
out
of
of
it.
bounds.
So it saves you about 3 to 7 seconds on that entire cutscene.
Yeah, it's
So
definitely
that also
a
got used for every run from this point
a
going
passion
forward.
project game,
But I
that's
think
for
the
sure.
biggest
That's
discovery
the
is
cleanest way I could
Fisherman's
probably put
Skip.
it.
Now, in my opinion, this is the holy grail of Amok Runner glitch discoveries because this was really the first major innovation. This is like the actual Higgs boson particle here. It was found by Pwn Noobs, and what you do is you drive your bike into this wall, and when you get off your bike, you collide with the fisherman and get an upwards launch which can take you all the way to the train station, and it saves you like 30 seconds, which in this game is an
That's so
eternity.
cool!
The game may have runner in its name, but don't be fooled. The running speed in this game is about a 90-year-old man's walking speed. It is
faster than
how
me then.
slow you move in this game.
Faster than my
So
16-star
finding this
records,
was
that's
huge
for
because
sure.
It gets you to the train station much, much, much faster. But not only was it just great for that intro, it actually had such a wide range of uses because this was a mechanic that could be translated elsewhere. And it did. This became
that makes
kind of the
sense.
focal point of Amok Runner speedrunning, mastering these launches. Now,
That would
unfortunately,
be
this was a
insane.
little controversial because this launch was improved by better PCs. So if you had high frames, you could be at this launch much more
Yes.
consistently than someone that doesn't. So
Let's
this led to our
go.
very first Discord drama, our massive
Really?
little war that was held on the Amok Runner battlefield.
It's
And
literally
eventually,
24
we made
hours.
the decision to limit the FPS to 60, so all runners had to run the game at 60 FPS, so that way it was even across the board. This was a tough decision that required
That is a
hours
tough
upon hours of
decision. What?
deliberation in the speedrun bounty headquarters. It was like the United Nations getting together to ultimately come to a conclusion. The majority of the runners were in favor of the change because it's a $10,000 competition, and it seemed unfair that someone that just had more money to begin with.
Okay,
with
and
better
question has to be
hardware
asked now
had
that
an
$10,000
advantage
is
over the
gone.
others that didn't
Can
have
we
the same hardware.
uncap our frames?
So, with this new change in mind, new discoveries and new routes started to be theory crafted. But let me give you a rundown of the world records for the first 4 days. So after Spicy gets his
Oh, it's more than
29-17 on
24
day
hours,
one,
okay.
he then comes back in the following day to beat it with a 29-minute flat, and then
Whoa.
Zach gets the first sub 29 with a 28-58.
But there's
At
only
this
by a
point,
couple
it's
of
becoming clear
seconds.
to
How
everyone
clean
who
is
the
this?
front runners are here to win. It's Spicy.
I'm not
TV
sure if I
and
could
Zach
even
who
compete.
are
I'm gonna play
trading
through the game
world records
once
back
at
and forth
least
like they're
to
fucking
get
Pokemon cards.
an idea of how this
Then
really feels.
2 new athletes enter the Thunderdome. Distortion 2, one of the biggest names in all of speedrunning, decides to put his talents to the test in the Amok Runner field, and he starts practicing all of the glitches, specifically Fisherman's Skip. I watched for hours as he just banged his head against a fucking wall trying to get that consistent, It is an absolutely brutal trick. It is so precise and so unforgiving, you'd have better luck winning the lottery twice than hitting that in an actual run consistently. But Distortion was determined to make magic happen and master the trick, so he kept trying to get it consistent, and he got very good at the launch mechanic in general. He didn't post any world records in the first 4 days, he instead spent that time trying to master the tricks. However, the other runner who came in is one that I'm sure everyone knows if you follow Super Mario 64 speedrunning.
No.
It's Ouija.
Ouija!
Came in and
What?
did like a
I thought it was gonna be
35-hour
Simply.
fucking marathon
What is
stream of
Ouija
Amok
doing
Runner,
here? I didn't know
and
he was
posted
running it too.
28:48, taking the record from Zach. But Zach came back with a furious.
Is that why Simply
grinded
started
it
playing?
down
Was
to
because Ouija was?
28:46 the same day, and then a 28:35 hours later, and then a 28:29 shortly after that. It's important to note that none of these world records up till this point had utilized the recently discovered Fisherman launch just because of how inconsistent and risky it was. Plus, no one likes resetting in this game because then you have to go through like a minute and a half unskippable intro, which is just mind-numbingly fucking painful. It's brutal.
Yeah, that's
Most people
speedrunning in
didn't bother
general for
during
you
the
though.
run. However, Zach now got the world record
You kinda
3
get used
times
to
in
it.
a row across that day. So he decided to get a little goofy. He had some time to play around and get wacky. So he did decide to start trying the Fisherman launch during runs, and
Oh.
he hit a mean one.
Oh,
Jesus Christ.
oh, dude, let's go! Dude, at the very beginning, dude.
Zach gets
Let's
the
go,
Fisherman launch
dude.
and then goes through with his tried and true established route that he's already mastered, and he posts a 28:24. He then comes back again for round 2, the old double whammy, double fisting the Fisherman launch, and it's a 28:21. And it looks like this is going to be very difficult for people to beat, but you'd be a fucking idiot to think that, because then,
Sub
not long
25?
after, Spicy TV comes back and gets a 28:19, also utilizing the Fisherman launch. It's now obvious to
I'm
everyone
hoping for
if
it,
you
but if
want
we don't
any
get to a
shot of getting in
27,
the
there's no
top
point in
3 of
thinking
this
it.
game, you're going to have to master these launches. There's no other way around it.
Hmm.
Day 5 rolls around, and people are miserable trying to get Fisherman launch to be consistent instead of being a stubborn bitch that it was. And as they say, pressure makes diamonds. Through desperation came salvation. With the now iconic trick that I think Amok Runner is known for, cock skip.
Cock
Discovered on
skip?
day 5,
No
cock
way.
skip uses the exact same fundamentals as the Fisherman launch, but it's much closer to where you start, and it's also much, much more consistent. So it works by getting on your bike after Linda leaves, and instead of going to where
Because of the
fisherman is,
cocks.
you come over to this bad boy who's feeding his chickens. You line up your bike in a precise way, but it's a very consistent and pretty easy to get lineup. And then you get off your bike, and when he collides with you, open your map, and it'll launch you directly to the train station. It's faster than Fisherman launch, it's more consistent, and it's got a cooler name. Cockskip became a staple in the community.
Cockskip.
Now I should explain why
So,
the runners open their map during these launches. The reason they open the map is because it slows down the in-game time, but also increases your frames, which lead to longer launches, higher launches. If you don't open your map, you don't nearly go as fast or as far or as high as you would had you
So
opened it.
does the map
that's why you're going to see that
on-screen
for every
duration also
single
mean
launch.
longer jumps?
And there is a lot of them. Now, Cockskip being a massive discovery leads to a lot of people spending day 5 just getting good at it. There's a couple new records that are posted, once again, traded by Spicy TV and Zach. Spicy gets a 28:14.
There's a
shortly
chance that we could
after
get
a
sub
28
25.
flat, and then Zach gets the first sub 28 with a 27:57, and then finishing the day with an absolutely beautiful, super squeaky clean 27:47. He's only using Cockskip and Linda Skip, and he's already in the sub 28 category.
That's
He's
insane.
breaking records, he's breaking dicks, he's doing
So-
an incredible job. Zach 777 is thought to be the Amok Runner god. Day 6 rolls around, and people are hungry to find a way of skipping one of the most tedious sections of the game, the crane puzzle. There's a good
Mhm.
handful of puzzles throughout the run, many of which are solved almost instantly by the runners because they've mastered exactly the amount of key presses they'll need, and they're not an issue. But crane puzzle, no matter how fast you are, how smart you are, how quickly
Yeah, it
your
looks a
little
bit
fingers can
tedious.
move around, it doesn't matter because that crane only operates on the slowest possible speed imaginable. It is brutal,
Yeah, it
boring,
looks
and
pretty
long.
bad.
And from the very beginning, day one, people knew that theoretically you could skip this because doing the crane puzzle is not an objective. Thus, skipping it is not a
Oh.
sequence break. You could skip the puzzle
So
and
we just
still
need to
do
get the car
current
past
objective,
it?
meaning there'd be no issue. But the problem was, even if you could launch over the crane puzzle and get to the house behind it, which is your objective, the problem is the crane puzzle's still not solved, meaning you can't leave. So you had to find a way to launch
And
to the house over the crane and then launch out over the crane to the next objective, which is the mansion. There were actually a lot of discoveries that ended up not being used in runs, but seemed to have a lot of potential. One of them's called car teleportation. So there's actually this really interesting system in this game where when it thinks you're stuck, you can reset your position. Some glitch hunters discovered that you could actually cheat this by just holding onto the parking brake and making the game think you're stuck to reset your position to pretty much wherever you want it to be, as long as it was a flat surface. So you'd hold the parking brake, you'd set a position, then you'd drive somewhere else, and then do the same thing again, and it'd reset you back at the first position that you set. However, this didn't end up being useful because you'd still have to solve the crane puzzle, and it'd only give you a head start getting to the mansion, which really wasn't worth the effort. But I still think it was a cool discovery. Now, what ended up happening is on day 6, people did finally find a way of skipping crane puzzle and then skipping all the way to the next objective, the mansion.
Oh.
So this was a series of glitches that were found pretty much back to back, and they are brutal and unforgiving. By far, this is the most difficult part of the run because unfortunately it relies a lot on just some good RNG at the end of the day.
Woo!
There's
That
only
means I
so
can
much you
probably attempt it
control.
then.
It's
If there's no
fucking-
skill
it's
involved, I can do
fucking
it.
awful. So the first is cone launch. Cone launch is where you're going to drive your car over past this construction worker and then gently squeak this puppy on over this traffic cone. You want it right behind your headlight, and then you wait exactly 10 seconds. On the 10th second, you bring up your map, and then you're going to have a launch. The traffic cone is going to send you to fucking space. Your car is going to be freaking out. It's going to be like spaghettified as if it's going through a black hole. And ideally, it lands over this out of bounds line and on
Right.
top of the checkpoint in front of the house. If you do this, you've skipped the crane puzzle, and now you're at the next objective, and you've saved like fucking a minute and 10 seconds or something. It's
It's
a big chunk.
badass.
But it's not easy because the traffic cone's not always going to fling you in the exact same spot every single time.
Right.
Sometimes
I
you don't
guess.
make it fully
Yeah.
over the out of bounds. Sometimes you make it too far. Sometimes you fall on the other side of the gate, and if that happens, you can't save it. And also the car's this absolute unrivaled mess of a contraption where it can just get stuck in the goofiest position. So if you hit like any of the rocks or the barrels here, you're gonna get stuck and you can't get it out. So there's just so many variables at play that you have limited control over. So cone launch is absolutely rough. And whenever someone hits cone launch, the whole community goes in to watch to see if they can clutch out the next part of the run, which is by far the most unforgiving glitch I've ever seen
Aw.
in any game I've ever tried to speedrun. I've speedrun like 100 games by now, and I've never had a glitch be this much of a piece of shit. So after hitting cone launch, which is no easy task, you then go through the objective as normal in the house. You line up some pictures, you grab a revolver, you shoot 2 men dead in cold blood, murder 2 dudes, then you get back in your car, and then you drive the car over this log. This is called log launch. By getting
Why
your
is there
car
so many
stuck on this
launches?
log
Holy
in the
damn.
perfect position and getting out of the vehicle, you can get a lucky collision that will launch you upwards and flings you all the way to the mansion on the other side of the map. It's extremely inconsistent, and it's also extremely difficult to navigate even if you do hit the launch, because the camera gets all wonky, it gets all fucking cattywampus, so it actually inverts itself, which changes the controls, and the high speed makes it really disorienting. So it's extremely hard to actually control yourself even when you do get the launch because of all the camera.
You just go into
fuckery
another
going on.
dimension or
But
something.
it can
What?
launch you all the way to the mansion and save you so much time. So hitting these 2 tricks back to back became integral for getting the world record,
Oh.
and some madman actually put together a run on
No.
day 6 utilizing
Sub
both.
25?
His name
I'm
was
betting sub
Thirsty
20.
Jacobo.
Sub 25. I'm betting it. Woo. That looks so sketch though. I feel like I'm gonna fail that so many times. Nice. Into the next dimension. Let's go. Let's go.
The run itself wasn't the cleanest, but hitting these 2 launches, which no one else up till this point had done, was enough to get him world record with a 27:35. And a lot of people actually
That's for a
thought this might end up being
27
unbeatable
still.
just due to the
What?
pure
No way.
inconsistency of those 2 tricks. But as is always the case when it comes to speedrunning, new methods were discovered. On the next day, a runner named Bob Toad discovers a new way of doing the same mansion launch that doesn't use the log. The log was extremely inconsistent, and it really was just a complete gamble if it was going to launch you, but Bob Toad utilized something called plank launch. He did the exact same trick with cone launch, and then after doing the objective normally, getting back in his car, instead of driving to the log, he drove to this pile of planks. And this is a much
Right.
more consistent setup. So you drive your car onto the planks, and you want to line up your back wheel in between these 2 planks on the
Yeah,
far
I
right.
see it. I see
And
it.
if you do that, it'll launch you most of the time. But even then, it is still pretty RNG reliant because sometimes it'll just launch the car to the fucking stratosphere. But a good chunk of the time, it'll launch you. It's an easier, more consistent setup, and it's a better position to get. And Bob Toad utilizes
Damn,
this
I like he
launch
just
to get
goes
the
into another
first
dimension and just
sub-27 run.
hits the
Looks
ground running
things
like
are
there's
getting
no
really
issue at all.
sweaty. We already have some runners that put in 100 hours in the first 8 days, and the talent is starting to show. Bob Toad has the current world record at this point, but then we have the old guard coming back. It's none other than Spicy TV, who comes
Let's go,
in with one of
Spice.
the biggest gaps in the entire competition. Spicy TV utilizes the exact same tricks as Bob Toad, but since he had already mastered every other facet of this run, he's able to cleanly get a 25:51. He used all the same tricks, but the difference here was just in how much he's practiced every other angle of the game. Better shooting, better, quicker puzzle solving, better lines, getting from point A to point B, better boss fight. Spicy TV just put it all together into an absolutely tremendous run. At this point, we're 9 days in, and the pressure is really starting to be felt by the entire community. Distortion 2, who's now spent the majority of his time practicing all the tricks, is now starting to bang out runs, and they're looking scary for the rest of the community. The leaderboard's not changing nearly as much. The best runners have already been carved out here, and they're now just competing with one another to try and maintain a top 3 position. There's not a ton of movement, however. From days 9 to 11, there were 2 new world records. The
Nice.
first was
That's a nice
achieved by
number.
Ouija, who comes in, slaps his feet on the table, and lets his presence be known, clocking a 25:42. He's using all of the same strategy as the other runners, he's just cleaning everything else up around the launches. After Ouija gets a 25:42, Zach777 comes in once again, showcasing why
Dude,
he's
he's
been here
back.
for so long, and he gets a 25:30.
Sub 25.
This
I'm
run was a
I'm still
triumph for
betting
all
on
of
it.
humanity.
Still betting
Most
on it.
people believe Zach has just got an unbeatable world record because it almost looked perfect. There wasn't
Hey,
any
yo, what up,
issues,
Eagle?
no
How's it
big
going?
fuck-ups
We just
or anything.
vibing.
It
I'm
looked
learning a
like
whole lot
run
about
that
this
would
game
stand
right
the
now.
test of time.
I didn't know much about it, but
Almost
all I
did.
knew is that Moist
On
Critical
day
was
13,
say the challenge for it.
Distortion 2 finally
It's
gets
been
his
badass.
Big magnum opus of a run, getting a 25:38, which secures second place. He's now behind Zach going into the final day. He's in second place. He looks primed to take home at least 2.5K. But on
Look like
day
Charlie Cox.
14,
Like the.
Bob
I
Toad
think I
comes
know
in
who
and
you are.
sweeps
Did you
the
get
rug out
banned?
from under him.
No
He
way! Did you
absolutely
get
pulls the
banned?
wool
Is
over
that
his
who I
eyes. He
think it
gets a
is right now?
20
No way. It can't be right now. Either that, you've made an alt account, or this is just somehow super coincidental. Oh my god, no way. I'll take your word for it, but there's another guy who says things exactly like that. It just equates me to some really random people. If that is you, kudos to you, dude. That's fair game. Like, holy damn, that completely ravaged my world.
5:37, kicking Distortion to third place, right at the finish line. With 2 hours to go, Distortion's run is
As soon as I
treading water, but
finished
he's
reading
still
that sentence,
doing
my
runs.
mind
He's
just went,
still
"What?
cranking out
No
runs,
way."
hoping to improve his time, hoping to even get
That was
first
great.
place. But right now, he's hanging on by just a fingernail. He's got one fingernail on the nipple, and he's still trying to suckle from that titty. And then the clock's ticking down even further. With 2 hours to go, Ouija does the unthinkable, putting into practice everything he's learned for the past 14 days, utilizing 150% of his brain power.
Let's go, dude.
Ouija gets every
You got
launch,
this, Ouija.
first try,
Represent
perfect
the Sumo
trajectory,
64
perfect
community.
landing, hits everything outside of the launches perfectly, except for the boss fight. The boss fight was a little bit of floundering, making it extremely close, but getting a 25-32.
Whew.
1 second
Sub
faster than
25,
Zach,
is that possible?
taking first
We're
place
so
for only
close, but
2 hours.
I don't know
before
how
competition closed.
optimized
also
this is
kicked
yet.
Distortion from third place to fourth, but Distortion wasn't down in the dirt yet. He wasn't buried 6 feet under. He actually. had
Yo,
some
what up,
tricks
Cat?
up his sleeve.
How's it going? It's good to see
Distortion
you
had
again.
practiced all of the glitches more than anyone else in the competition, I would argue, and he was ready to let that shit rip. He had a few very promising runs within the last 2 hours, and he tried utilizing some absolutely brutal glitches, one of them being Chinatown skip. Chinatown
Wait,
skip
what?
is yet another launch that skips from Mansion all the way to
You
Chinatown.
have to go in 10
which
minutes?
is where
True,
the,
dude. It's nice seeing you
failed
here, though.
abortion takes
It's
place.
good to see you.
It's another pretty long road from Mansion to Chinatown, so the skip does save quite a few seconds. And during a couple of his runs, Distortion tried to
Far
implement
out.
that to make up the difference in order to
Yeah,
keep
that
the
load
faster.
time,
But
though.
it wasn't
He
just
broke
Chinatown
that game,
he had
like,
at his
in
disposal.
2.
Distortion had actually discovered something that he called bowling, where after the boss
What?
fight, he could skip a lengthy animation by getting hit by a car and tumbling forward. This would actually save even more.
What?
And then at the very end, there was always Moist Skip, which is another 4-second
Let's
time skip.
go.
So putting Chinatown Skip, the bowling, and Moist Skip all into this run, Distortion did have a chance to get world record at the very end. But unfortunately, it just wasn't in the cards. He had a handful of very promising runs, but they fell apart on Chinatown Skip. He missed it twice. And he finished in 4th place, just outside of the prize money.
Fourth.
This competition was absolutely amazing to watch. I couldn't be happier with how all of it went, and I hope everyone had
How
a
many
great
days
time.
did this
I
go
know
on
the
about?
glitches were fucking rough, and I know the game was quite interesting, to say the least. But I am extremely excited to continue doing this, and I hope all of the runners that competed in this one will compete in the future bounties that I put out. The next one, I'll
Oh, so
announce
he
in
is
the
planning
next
on
few
doing more
days,
bounties.
and I hope you
That'd
all
be interesting.
enjoyed this breakdown of the Amok Runner Speed Run $10,000 Bounty World Record Super Duper Turbo Challenge Extraordinaire. It was
Gone
fucking
wrong,
great.
gone
That's
sexual.
about it.
Let's go. That's honestly phenomenal. I bought the game. I've given them my $22. And it's installed. Might play a little bit of it before we end stream tonight, but that's crazy. That's actually insane. That's what I thought was crazy is just the amount of people that showed up to this. Like we had Simply and Ouija. I didn't even know Ouija was competing. I'm glad that in a way I just kind of didn't really look into the situation. All I knew was that there was a game called Amok Runner that Moist put a bounty on, and that was about it. That's about all I knew. So, holy damn, that looked fun. And what I love the most is you give a speedrunning community a random game. Like, it is legit just any game. And they completely dismantle it. They completely just chew it out. Like, granted, this is probably isn't the most, like, best example, because it looks like a passion project, I think is the best way I can describe the game. That isn't mean. But, like, still, within, 7 days, was it? 7, 8 days? They completely chewed the game out. Just in there zipping and launching all over the place. Like, speedrunning just, it tickles my jimmies in a way that none other has.